I'm Chad Ruthermond.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And welcome to NOCLIP Pocket. Heads will roll. Today, we're going to be talking about Man of Medan, which is the first game in Supermassive's Dark Pictures anthology series. None of the other ones have come out yet, and we will get back to you on that if it does. But it was developed by Supermassive Games, published by Bandai Namco, and was released in 2019 on Windows, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. The Man of Medan is in the same vein of game, little rhyme there for you, as Supermassive's previous, well, I guess not directly previous, but like their breakout game, Until Dawn. I mentioned that just as a side note because Until Dawn Rush of Blood, which was a VR roller coaster rail shooting game, also was made by them, but like it's not, I don't know, nobody would consider that canonical, I don't think.
Right. But yeah, the thing that I really like about this game and the upcoming anthology series is that's, as far as I'm aware, unique. Like, I don't know of any other, like, anthology video game series. Like, at least in the way that, like, movie anthologies work.
Right, yeah. Like, their explicit goal with this was to call back to anthology television shows and movies like the like what you would see introduced by Elvira and like the Crypt Keeper and shit. And their Crypt Keeper character is this, like, I want to say they call him like the Archivist or something.
Yeah, the Archivist or whatever.
Yeah, but he plays like a similar role. If you've played Until Dawn, which we'll probably make a few references to, I'm going to say we aren't going to spoil anything about that game, but if you have played it, there will probably be more connections to make. But there's a psychiatrist character who kind of checks in with you in between, and the Archivist and that character fulfill a really, really similar role, where they kind of just like add context to the story and also sort of break away from it so that ostensibly it's like a fiction,
like a framing device.
Yeah, which is strange because it's a story inside of another story, which makes it very difficult to like give a shit about the characters.
I think it's purely for that idea, that anthology idea. Like it. And another thing is that this really, at least this one, Until Dawn, is a different case. But this really feels like a low budget horror film. Like, it seems like the kind of thing you would watch on like a late night TV block, and this guy is just kind of like introducing all the movies, you know, like it feels like a product of like a bygone era when that kind of stuff was done
right
on TV.
I want to like call out, like, because we're gonna get into this and there are gonna be some things that we think hit and other things that don't, but one of like the biggest successes of this is absolutely tone. Like, if their goal was to make this game like kind of a schlocky horror movie, it feels like something like if this movie was filmed in live action and shown to you, it would not seem out of place or weird at all. Like, you just cut out the parts where you as the player walk around and explore things and replace it with like B-roll or like dialogue scenes being extended or shot a little bit better. And this is a movie. Like, they don't even the effects like that are in game and therefore can be rendered as anything seem like the kind of choices that would be made to make the low budget work. Like, most of the enemies are like ghosts, and there's like a gas, and then the characters play off of each other to create tension. So there's like, you could do this with like practical makeup effects at a fog machine, and you would just have the stuff necessary.
And you only got like two locations, being the boat, the
small boat,
and the big like military boat.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know how much credit to give them, because I do think some of it is intentional. Like, I do think it's supposed to feel kind of like a B horror movie, but I think a lot of it is also unintentional. Like, this game feels like it was made like as cheaply and efficiently as possible for like the kind of game that it is. Like I feel like they probably had to crunch pretty hard to get this out.
Well, it came out last year, and I honestly don't have the slightest idea what the development cycle was, like how long it took them to make this.
It just, and I mean, obviously, I don't have any industry knowledge, but it just seems like the kind of thing that they'd have the idea for, and they'd give them a short development period and a smaller budget.
Yeah, the places where it really shows are the programming to some extent. I think that there are a lot of sort of like visual and audio problems in the game that pop up from time to time that are a little jarring and look a little bit weird, and the voice acting is just like, I don't want to say like abysmal. I've seen worse, but it is not good in a way that takes you out of it more than it needed to. Yeah. In a game that's so dialogue focused.
Well, yeah, and it stands out, I think, especially because of how good the character modeling is. They make heavy use of motion capture. I know in Until Dawn there was at least one actress I actually recognized, and they use her likeness in it. And I'm assuming these are all real people as well. And so yeah, they look very realistic, and you know they do all like the facial capture and stuff. And then the bad dialogue just stands out as especially bad against the good-looking visual presentation.
Yeah, it is like a little bit jarring and weird. I don't know where I would focus my I mean, the next game in this series is supposed to come out like early next year, and or maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's the end of this year. It's coming out like within a few months.
Soon.
Yeah, and I kind of like, I'm interested in playing it because I want to see where they go with it, but it really will be like a make or break for me as far as like, is this something to keep watching? Because like I liked Supermassive because I liked Until Dawn, and now with it's like we're getting into a Star Wars situation where half of what they've made isn't very good anymore, and now I don't know if I want to associate.
Yeah, well, I think it's the budget is the thing. Like Until Dawn was like a full-fledged AAA like survival horror thing.
Yeah.
And where these are obviously supposed to be made cheaper and quicker. And the thing for me will be like, is it just going to be cranked out with the exact same like design philosophy? And I would bet money that yes, it is. Because I think that's kind of the point, that they can put these out consistently.
I guess that's true.
But I mean, that's just an assumption I'm making.
But if it's been about a year since this game came out, then I don't know. It seems like, because they have the engine, obviously. So it's possible that they can take the first excursion, learn from their mistakes, and like, if the plot of this game had been better, I probably would have overlooked a lot of this stuff. So, you know, maybe their writers will come up with something a little bit nicer for the second time around, but I guess we'll find out. We should talk about like the primary gimmick of this, or even the base mechanics, but we can do this in two.
We will do both of those.
We'll do a 1-2 on this. The thing that separates this game from Until Dawn, or even games that are sort of like spiritually related to it, like The Walking Dead or Life is Strange, like dialogue-based adventure games, is that this game is designed to be played with multiple people. We played it with 2 people, but you can go up to 5 with each player controlling one of the principal characters.
And it seems like it would definitely be ideal to play it that way.
Yeah, it seems like it would be more fun.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, like, I really like this idea. It seems very impractical to get 5 people to play this game. And also the game kept telling us it was the wrong person's turn.
Yeah, I might just be remembering it wrong, but I feel like when you like assigned who was playing what character that you messed it up, but then I just didn't say anything because you had already hit the X button. But
He's just blaming me.
It might have been you, but it also might have been the game. Both are reasonable possibilities.
Yeah.
But the reason I say that I think it would be ideal to play it with 5 people is because one of the big gimmicks is that the characters can just die.
Yes.
Because they take it very much like horror slasher movie style, where you're playing like a group of young people and they can get picked off one by one.
Right.
And if you were playing it with 5 people, that's more incentive to keep your character alive, because if they die, then you're not playing anymore.
Right. But very often your fate, and by very often, I mean, I think in this game at least 100% of the time, your fate is mostly in the hands of other people.
Yeah.
Like, you can fuck up QuickTime events and die, presumably.
Probably.
We didn't in this playthrough, but you could probably do it enough times that you die. But, like, we really didn't want to stab Brad.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I was using, like, we got conflicting information from some of the secret paintings.
Yeah.
Which made me think in the moment, like, I overthought it.
Yeah.
And then I thought, and I was like, stab Brad. Stab that guy. And it turned out to be Brad. But if we were playing with 5 people, I would have been way more hesitant to stab the person,
right?
Because that would put somebody out of the experience,
right? So now, knowing that you might think that I fucked up the player selection thing,
yes, I definitely am responsible for Brad's death.
I have a new theory in my head that our mantra, because they're these images that you'll find throughout the game, and when you look at them, it shows like a premonition of something that could happen. And the idea is it shows you sort of like a key scene that you can act in to prevent something from happening, whether it's a death or like some other event. Like there's a MacGuffin type prop that you have to find throughout the game. And there's a sequence of it being smashed, so it isn't always like somebody dying. And we see Brad get stabbed in the chest, and our mantra from that point on was just don't stab Brad.
Yep.
Because we definitely thought it was going to be one of the characters that stabs Brad.
Yep.
And we're like, just don't stab anybody. And then Andy made the final call to stab the guy that was attacking us, because he knew it was Brad, because it was one of my characters, and he was mad at me.
That's why, yes. But we found another painting. You find these paintings in somewhat out of the way areas that will show you those premonitions, and one of them showed us stabbing Brad, and then the other one showed a scene of a guy in a cloak, like, coming in to like kill. Some other character was in first person. Yeah. So that's the scene that was happening. So I was like, oh, I was so torn in that moment. Like, is this Brad, or are they trying to fuck with me and make me think of this, and then I don't stab him and he kills me? Right. So they really pulled one over on me with Brad there.
And the problem is the premise of this game is such that most of the time the things that are going to kill your characters are you making a bad decision about killing someone, because the characters are hallucinating. It's a very like supernatural / not actually supernatural.
There's some
story.
Kind of like ghostly gas.
Yeah,
that
it's like,
makes people like see things
from the Manchurian gold.
It's gold dust.
Yeah. So apparently this like ancient gold dust that melted down and like became aerosol is like just like lingering around the ship, and inhaling it has hallucinogenic properties.
Yeah. And aren't there actual ghosts too?
I don't know.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Like, I genuinely am not sure, because like in the end, when you think they would reveal the ghost thing, there's like this after credit sequence where some like Coast Guard dudes or something get onto the boat, and they're like, we got a distress call from here, like blah 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 blah. And then they start going in, and the thing that kills them is not a ghost, it is just one of the like kidnapper characters. Right. Just like beats them to death with a sledgehammer. So I think there were no ghosts.
Okay.
I think it was just Manchurian gold. and cause the whole fucking problem. So, but yeah, so it's like hallucinatory, so everybody has to kill everyone else. And we only killed Brad, despite him being explicitly the one person we did not want to kill.
Yep.
And that is a problem, I think. Like, I think that we, on our first playthrough, should have barely made it out.
Yeah.
Like, it seems poorly tuned.
Yeah, no, because we played Until Dawn like a couple years ago now, and it works in a similar way in its structure. I remember the secrets being harder to find in that, and therefore we made it out with less characters alive in the end. In this, it was on the opposite end of the scale, where the paintings were super easy to find, and we made it out with just one character and very easily could have had them all if I didn't overthink that one situation. But yeah, so I agree. The tuning is bad in this one, but I kind of think the whole system as a whole is just like a pretty big flaw.
Yeah.
I think the way we've explained it well enough at this point. I don't need to reiterate, but like hiding like plot crucial, or not plot crucial, but like decision, like really important context for the narrative scenarios behind a secret collectibles is bad, because like with Until Dawn, that one's it stung worse in that one, even though I think it's a better game overall, because you invest more time in it, and then you miss some of the secrets because they were more well hidden, and then you end up losing and having your character die, and it feels like it was through no fault of your own. It's because like the game was purposefully keeping like important information from you and making it hard for you to make a decision with what you're actually presented in game. And I think a system that would work way better is if it was more like Life is Strange, with spoilers for Life is Strange to anybody listening. But with Kate's suicide.
Right.
You're rewarded for paying attention and actually remembering details about the characters, and knowing enough personal information about Kate will allow you to talk her off the ledge.
Right.
And I think something like that would work way better, where like you're rewarded for paying attention to the things you read and gathering context from the stuff that you find, and you're actually able to apply that information you actually have in those important narrative moments where your characters can die.
Yeah, I think what we have is sort of like we have a scattershot sort of plot of where these games fall, because I actually don't entirely agree, even though I agree with your main premise. Like, I think that the hint system that they use is a little bit hokey and weird and doesn't quite fit in the theme of the game, whereas just like having environmental detail is way easier to like test the player on than it is to test to see if they picked up a thing and therefore make the right decision wholly at random. Like in Until Dawn, it's difficult to try and make you learn things about the characters because there are so many characters. Like there are like 8 to 10 characters that you play as in Until Dawn, and like they phase in and out of importance, but like there are people who will just show up and be like, hey, and now you make decisions for them for a little bit. This game shrinks the cast down to 5, which I think makes strides but keeps the same old way. My thing is, I think what the game wants you to do is make decisions in a panic. I don't think it wants you to make good decisions.
Well, you could still have time pressure.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it wants you to like, it wants to put you in the character's shoes. Like if you know too much about what could happen, then you don't feel the fear that the character feels. And admittedly, you're playing a video game, you're not going to feel the fear of people stranded on a fucking boat. But the important thing is to like emulate that. And I would actually prefer if you were more helpless and they just put you in more situations that could kill you, but you have easier decisions. Like shift the scale more, like, because I didn't want Brad to die.
Right.
But I don't know if I would have felt better about the game if we had made it out with everybody. because stabbing Brad was one of my favorite things that happened in the whole game. Like,
Well,
it was a genuine
memorable.
surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was memorable. Like, it was a decision that we really did have to make, and that was created by the hint system, which is flawed, and the fact that the game, like, once you figured it out, once you stab Brad, you don't stab anybody else. Like, it's pretty easy to get around that.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Like, I genuinely think this game has like an element to it that makes sense and is good, and then an element to it that it doesn't make sense and is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so the game as a whole feels worse than it should. Like, I don't know how best to like remedy the situation.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they're jamming a puzzle piece that doesn't fit into a spot that looks like maybe it should. But yeah, I still think that just like getting rid of the hints and actually like just putting more of that information into the world somehow is the best scenario I can think of. Like, I don't think that would tip the scales too much. Like, I still think you could have the same kind of moments. It's giving that information to the player in a more organic way.
Yeah.
And they can still miss it, but it would be less likely. Because I don't feel like you don't want to make it secret.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to, I mean, yeah, you want to make it something, even if it's like difficult to see in the same way that a secret would be, not to codify it. Like, they already have collectibles in this game. Like, there are things you can pick up. They give you fucking achievements for doing it, and there's like 30 of them. And so go wild with that stuff. Like, because it doesn't affect me, the person who's just playing the game, to like play it from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when it comes to the actual story critical things, it would be nice to, and also it helps with the really inexplicability of the posters. The fact that like you find the paintings or whatever and you look at them and it shows you a flash of the future.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything in the context of the game. It's just there as a gameplay element. And they already have a guy in a library who's there to fill that role. So like the fact that they add this additional thing just makes the break even further.
Yeah.
From being like an immersive experience.
Right. To be charitable, I kind of felt like it was supposed to be like I don't know if eldritch knowledge is the right thing, but like you find something that triggers a vision. Right. Like as we called them, premonitions. But,
deadly premonitions?
Yeah, deadly premonitions, literally. But it just doesn't, the fact that they're paintings, like it just doesn't, there's no thematic tie there.
And they also have a painting on the boat that they're on, and then there's also like another 20 of them on a 1940s ship, or 1960s.
They're all like a matching set of paintings.
Yeah. But like obviously, like we wouldn't complain about fucking Crash Bandicoot picking up mangoes or whatever. So
the Wampa fruit.
Sorry, I'm not a.
Come on.
All right. It's like, why would there be so many fruits here? Doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It could use some work. Do we want to talk about characters and plot, or do you have more to say about like the base mechanics?
I think the only other thing, and I guess this kind of ties into story and plot, so we can like segue from this to that, is I like the systems we've been describing actually make for a meaningfully branching story, at least as far as I can tell. We haven't played any of these games more than once, but I imagine a character dying definitely changes it.
That is like a real thing. Like, there are a lot of games that are designed to be played more than once, and I will never ever do it.
Yep.
I still like the games, but like it feels like I'm not playing them the way they're meant to be.
We're just too old now. We don't have time to play it again.
Well, yeah, like I'm never gonna fucking play through Until Dawn again. That game's like 13 hours long. Like,
I would like to, but it's not gonna happen.
It's just too much of a commitment.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'd probably make, like, it's been so long, I'd just make all the same choices and end up with the same ending.
But yeah, that's just something I wanted to bring up. I think the branching stories really lends itself to a horror story like this with characters dying, and it's not just a studio shoving branching storylines into a game because that's popular.
Right. Like, oh, now they'll have to play the game twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like in our particular playthrough, like I think they made Brad easy to kill because like it's the first instance that you have to have a player kill a character. There is, I guess, a chance that Julia will get the bends when surfacing from a dive and die. And if that is the case, I have no fucking idea what the story does from there.
Maybe that's why she's got such a small part, because she can die so early.
Yeah, she dies real early. But Brad isn't even with the characters when they get on the ship originally.
Right.
And so, like, if you're playing this, pro tip, if you're planning on playing this game, if somebody's not into it, just have him play Brad.
Or Julia.
Because Brad has like 2 parts before there's a chance to kill him. And then you, being the person who knows because you listen to this podcast, can make sure that you stab Brad.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's that. It is interesting. And I think that probably lends to some of the more like stretched thin elements of the game, because they had to write so much to, you know, compensate for the chance the characters just stop existing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I have a lot of sympathy for the shortcomings of this game.
Yeah.
But there are a number of them.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of the guy who was a douche?
Oh God, I don't remember the characters' names. He's the blonde guy.
Yeah. I want to say his name was like
Conrad
or Conway.
Conrad sounds right. It's definitely not Conway.
That's Kentucky Road Zero.
I'm just gonna pull up a list. Okay, yeah, Conrad. What did they call her? Fliss.
Yeah, so it's Conrad.
Yeah.
Okay, so Conrad, Fliss, Alex, Julia, and Brad.
Yeah.
All right, nailed it
in one.
As it turns out, that character's name is Conrad, and the only character whose name I don't remember, somehow, absolutely the best character in this game, just for being the heel most of the time. Like, there are parts of this game where you expect him to go through character growth, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good call to some extent, because while it's more difficult and more rewarding to create a character with like an arc that makes sense and like comes out the other side you feeling different about them than you did when you came in, sometimes you just need an asshole to be in the game.
Well, I mean, and you have to think about the genre.
Yeah.
Like, these are horror movie young adults who are meant to get killed.
Yeah.
So that some of them just being annoying, like, just makes sense.
Right. It was it's notable because I think they tried to subvert things, I think, with their characters to some extent, like, not super well or like by a whole lot, but you end up with like Julia's kind of by the books, and so is Conrad. But you have Alex, who's like a doctor, but he's also like the jock guy. So I guess he's a med school student. Like, he isn't like a graduate yet, but he's done his homework. Like, he's a good student, and he was able to like read charts of people who had died in the boat.
Yeah.
And like tell all these things. So you have this sort of like crossover archetype. Like, if he was in the cabin in the woods, he is basically exactly Chris Hemsworth's character, and like works as sort of like that subversion of that trope in the same way that it did. But then his brother Brad is the same character, but he's just a cowardly, weak version of him.
He's the nerd.
Yeah.
That's the archetype that he is.
But Alex is also a nerd to some extent. Like,
yeah, but like, he's more like an academic.
Yeah.
And Brad is like a nerd.
Right. It's very disrespectful to people with no athletic ability, such as myself.
Yeah, and they almost kind of read to me, with the exception of Brad and Conrad, as kind of like horror movie, like teenage horror movie tropes just aged up a bit. Because, like, you know, that kind of stuff happens. Like, a guy is like a douchey jock in high school, and then he matures, you know? So it kind of read that way, with, like, at least with Alex and Julia. You know, she just kind of seems like a regular person. So, you know, some of them were a little more understated.
Yeah.
And then you had Brad and Conrad that were very tropey.
Yes.
And Felicia was interesting. Or Fliss.
Fliss.
Jesus, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia.
Fliss was an interesting character, I thought. Or at least she had potential to be. She had her moments.
I'm wondering if we missed some, like, level of characterization with her, because it seemed like there's a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
But it never, like, comes to fruition. Like, when she puts her license back in the drawer, makes it seem like she doesn't want people to know her name.
I think it's because it was expired. Like, if you look at the date on it.
I don't think I had an idea of when this game takes place.
I'm pretty sure that's what that was implying, is that she's not out here legally. But it never matters.
But she's the one that's a stickler for the rules. I can see
where she doesn't want to get caught.
The conflict. Yeah.
So I picked up on that, but it never comes up, really, other than there's a little bit of tension there at the beginning.
Yep. And then it sort of, like, just ends after they do get kidnapped, and you want to, like, band together, you know, against the common enemy in that situation. But there's a sequence in the game where they're like, they've been kidnapped, and Alex is like, I think Fliss is in on it. She's just doing it for personal gain.
It's super forced.
And then they get on the boat, and he's like, hey, sorry about that. And she's like, okay. And they just go on like nothing happened.
The scene that was the funniest in that way, in the bad movie kind of way, was at the very end. It felt like you saw the film cut and then splice in the clip. They were like, oh, which characters died? Here, put in that clip. And it's just like, Fliss, it's just like, oh man, I don't know. I'm telling you, it's just like some guy in a robe. I don't know what happened to Brad. And then it just, like, it's something to that effect, and then it just fades out to the boat, and then it just ends.
Yeah, like if more characters had died, there would have been, like, more of a scene built out of
and
that.
It's just like this one little clip that's, like, dropped in there on the timeline.
Yeah, like, it's just guy in a robe.
And it just ends abruptly. And it goes, like, right from that. It's like scene cuts, insert that, and then it goes back to the boat and fades out and ends. It's so abrupt and jarring and hysterical.
Oh, it's super. Well, I mean, and there's a sequence where, and I don't know, like, how they determine this, but there's a sequence where you, as Alex and I want to say Fliss, I think it's those two, jump down into this hole in the ground, and you end up on this catwalk, and you're about to go down a ladder, and there's, like, you see a dude from the kidnapper squad who's out to kill you, and you hide from him, and he goes away, and then you climb down a ladder, and then, apropos of nothing, Alex just goes, so here's how this game works, and just describes the plot. He's like, I don't think that there was any ghost. I think it's gas from the Manchurian gold. And you're like,
oh yeah?
If you figured that out, which I assure you have at this point, this scene feels totally unnecessary. And if you haven't figured that out, and the character just literally does nothing, not a goddamn thing related to this part of the plot, just decides to start talking about it, that has to feel insulting in some way. Like, it's like the worst way done at the worst time.
Yeah, it kind of makes it feel like it's showing you, like, the seams of the game, and how, like, the way it's structured and how characters can die just leads to things being kind of shuffled around, and stuff might not land depending on which characters are alive and, like, who's done what, you know. So I chalk it up to that.
Yeah, no,
it's still bad.
It is,
but
it's just so strange. I think, like, I agree that it is definitely the game just being the game, and it cannot handle it in a different way. But I think that there are other issues at play. I don't know. This seems like I'll get into this when it's like final thoughts territory.
Right, yeah.
So, do we?
The only other thing I have, I think, of significance, is just the price, like the pricing of this. It's $30, which I think in reality is a completely reasonable price for this product. But I think to a lot of people would seem kind of steep for what you get out of it.
If you actually have 5 friends,
yeah,
great price. $6 a piece.
Yeah. And
hell yeah.
I am an adult with an income and could drop $30 on a game whenever.
Right.
Even given that, like, that's the biggest deterrent for me wanting to continue playing these. Well, one of is like, $30. You know. So I don't know exactly if I have anything meaningful to say about it. It's just I could see that being an issue to this like anthology series like success.
I mean, I agree on this. I think that this is a really sort of like crystalline example of the financial problem facing the AAA games industry.
Yep.
Because like if you buy this for $30 as a unawares consumer, somebody who is literally buying this because like the thumbnail looked interesting, you have no experience with their other games.
I want something spooky to play.
Exactly, yeah. And you're just like, this seems good. You wouldn't. I think we didn't mention this at all. Man of Medan is a terrible title.
It is pretty bad.
Like, I love it, but it's a bad name for like a commercial product.
Yeah, like John Smith, or like, you know, like the John Everyman who would scroll past this on the store. That's gonna mean nothing to them,
right?
You know, like they're gonna gloss right past that.
Yeah, it's like Until Dawn is like a really catchy title.
Yeah, and paired with like the skeleton hourglass,
right.
It grabs your attention.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's super good. The artistry of it all is very good. And Man of Medan isn't that.
It's kind of weird to say.
It is, and it says the Dark Anthologies series : man. So even when you're scrolling, it's gonna say the Dark Anthologies series : ellipsis.
Man. dot.
The most dangerous game.
Ooh.
But yeah, so if you were totally unaware of what this game is and you buy it for $30, you're going to see these problems. You're not going to give a shit that it's supposed to be a multiplayer game.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to just play the game, and when you play it, you're going to see the issues that the game has, and you're going to go like, geez, this seems like a poorly made piece of shit. But it's not. It's just a lower budget game that they're trying to sell for $30, and it really couldn't have been made profitably without charging this much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's weird. Like if this had been in the Life is Strange style, which the art style is more stylized, but like
can make it cheaper.
Yeah,
like I think the mocap saves the money as well. I don't know exactly how economical it is, but not having to do as much animation, I would assume would be cheaper.
Well, and the environments are beautiful too. Like
they're relatively simple, so yeah.
Yeah, but they're detailed.
Yeah,
like
no, they're good.
Yeah, there's a great visual fidelity to this, which feels like is what's expected of them,
mm-hmm.
and it also causes problems because it's too much money.
Yeah, and it is an interesting case study, or whatever. I forget what terminology you used, but for
I use some bullshit. Don't worry.
Yeah, whatever dumb shit you said. Now for the pricing of video games, like that is a good point. Because like as I said, I feel like $30, if you actually like look at the quality of what you get, $30 completely reasonable. And I love the idea, especially like now when games are so expensive to produce, like AAA games, like a game from a studio that you've heard of is going to be like a $60 release, and taking like this kind of initiative to like put out like some smaller games at like half the price, but that still look really good. Like that's an interesting idea. I just don't think it's quite like the execution is off. Like as you said, if you could do it with more of a different art style that you could produce cheaper, or like you cut some other corners, and kind of in like a smart way, you could probably package this in a way that would be really successful, I think.
Yeah.
But it's not in that zone.
And we talked about Hellblade a couple years ago.
Independent AAA, as they call it.
And yeah, it's a similar kind of process, and like the price point was similar. Like I think it was $25-$30 when it came out. And that game, like our biggest complaint with that game was it was too fucking long for what the mechanics could support.
Right.
And this game is like the right length, but it has other issues. So if they like shortened it, like I feel like these two games are like Hellblade almost is the good version of this, but its follies were in what it thought people wanted. And I think Man of Medan's follies were in what it wanted. Like it was too ambitious almost.
I could agree with that.
Yeah. Do we have
Fatal Thoughts?
I think we've used Fatal Thoughts and Final Resting Thoughts. We've used all of these before.
Manchurian.
Do you have
thoughts?
Funeral thoughts?
My funeral thoughts are, I love this concept. I love the idea both, as we said, it's interesting from like a games industry angle. It's interesting to try to produce something that's like a low budget horror movie. Those are super popular with a niche audience that seems like it gets bigger all the time. And so, yeah, doing it in game form is really interesting. And I feel like the execution is super messy. And I really want to like this more than I actually do. Until Dawn was better, like the one that was given more time and money. But even still, it has like all of the same problems, most of them anyway. And it kind of shakes out differently because of like the budget and the length and stuff. But and you would think the shorter version would probably like alleviate some of the problems, you know, like that seems like that logic would make sense. But I actually think it ends up worse here a little bit. But overall, like I don't want to be too hard on the game. As I said, I like it, the premise a lot. And we did have fun playing it. I think it would be better if you had 5 people to play all the parts, air quotes. Yeah, I just think there's a gold nugget of an idea, and I'd really like to see it actually become something and not peter out, but I'm afraid it's just going to peter out. So if you're somebody who's found their way to this podcast and you listen this far and you haven't played it, I would encourage you to check it out. Support it.
I just want to jump in and say Until Dawn, despite having a lot of similar problems, did also have that mechanic where you have to hold the controller still.
Oh yeah,
which single-handedly elevates it like to a whole other level.
That is very cool.
But no, my final thoughts would be, I cannot talk shit on a developer that is as dedicated to like horror as Supermassive is. Like Supermassive, frictional developers who make games explicitly in this genre and who obviously give a shit about it have my respect, because I love these games and I love the genre. And so I'm always looking for things that are made with a level of care that really gives you your product that you can tell there's something behind it. And I think that is what Man of Medan is. It's a game that is there. It is shown up to the party, ready to go, but then the facade of the game is kind of crumbling and falling apart, but not in a good creepy way, like in a haunted house, but in like a very low property value rental kind of situation. I like this game style. Like I liked it in Until Dawn. I've liked it in all like the Telltale games, even though this is a little bit more in depth. Yeah, so I have no issues with that, but if they can clean up the rough edges, if they can tell a story with like in this vein, I understand how fucking hard it has to be with the amount of like decision points that are in here. That is just a little bit more engaging and has like a little bit more like pull to it. It isn't based entirely on Manchurian gold being the antagonist. Then I think there could be something really good. Yeah, this game is not exceptional, but I'm going to pay $30 for the next one and hope that the influx of my cash will help to propel whatever the next game is into like closer to what I want. But we'll see, I guess. Good game, not a great game. Thank you for listening to NOCLIP Pocket this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Wish me luck. Next time, we're going to be talking about Fatum Beychula. Fatum Beychula is what we're going with.
Yeah.
It is
Your guess is as good as ours.
Yes. A Latin titled indie horror game, more of like an atmospheric horror.
It looks like an older PC game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know much about it and kind of want to keep it that way until I play it.
I believe that the explicit point of reference is supposed to be PlayStation 1 games. But this is going to be, I think, fairly similar to Tamashi in that, but one, we got it from the same source, and and two, it's something that's harkening back to like older Japanese titles.
Yeah.
And the sort of like inexplicability of those to like this audience and how confusing it can be.
Makes them a little unnerving.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is that we're like the Dark Souls of podcasts.
In what way?
Because we're basing it on things that we saw and liked because we didn't understand parts of it. It's like when
like how Miyazaki
read Western fantasy novels.
You jumped a few points of logic there.
I jumped the shark on the first episode after episode 100.
I don't know. I feel like Pockets are on their own separate branch of the timeline.
That's true, yeah. And this is episode 30. We're now old. I don't know.
Pockets are filling up.
Pockets are, yep. The fat pockets.
The Jinko pockets.
Until that time, if you want to get hold of us, all of our contact information is on our website at noclippodcast.com. There you can find links to iTunes, Google Play, YouTube. You can find all of our old episodes, including games like, I don't know, The Cat Lady is an horror adventure game. Our YouTube actually has a nice playlist of just every horror game that we've covered, which will finally be getting updated.
Fatal Frame.
Yep. That's it. That's the only other one we did. No, Fatal Frame isn't a bad comparison. Also very water-based, which is nice. Yeah. Until that time, stay spooky.
Spook that like button.
Be sure to like, comment, and spook-scribe.
Make sure to boot, spook, and boogie.
Boo!
You agree with this?
You agree with this?
On page 600 of the script of Man of Medan, it says...
On page 666,
yes.
please.